Jinfrey had that same feeling again. Even though he was seeing this spectacle for the first time, he felt a strange nostalgia. If you think about it, this is not the first time the guy has had this feeling. Jinfrey had encountered him often and didn't even know how many times it was. He felt as if he had been living here since birth. The voice addressed Jinfrey Vanrage, pulling him out of his thoughts. The girl apologized for the wait and asked if he had come to register with the guild. The guy immediately nodded, answering that everything was correct. Looking at the girl's face, Jinfrey had the feeling that he had seen her before. The girl smiled and said that everything was ready and the guy could see his window. A window appeared in front of Jinfrey, indicating that he needed to wave his right hand to authenticate. Seeing this, the guy again felt a strange feeling of déjà vu. Suddenly, he realized that he remembered everything. The girl asked Mr. Vanray if everything was okay. A bunch of memories of exploring this world immediately flashed before Jinfrey's eyes. This place is a game he played all the time. He was even considered a professional. This was the world of the game Grand 7. Adventurers travel across 7 continents to achieve peace between countries. Online game in the style of a fantasy kingdom, that's where it is. The guy immediately panicked. He didn't believe it and didn't understand what was happening. Why did these memories decide to appear right now? He's an ordinary young man who dreamed of becoming an adventurer. He came here for the money to feed his family. But the world in which the boy was born and raised turned out to be a game that he had to play in a past life. A moment later, Jinfrey decided that this was a golden opportunity. The girl again asked if everything was okay with the guy, noting that he was shaking all over. Jinfrey only apologized for making her worry. He assured that he was simply burning with impatience, although deep down he was painfully shocked by what was happening. The boy didn't understand why his memories were awakened now. He couldn't find the answer no matter how much he thought about it, but if he used this knowledge, he could rise high. As she said goodbye, the girl just smiled and wished Jinfrey a safe journey. After passing through the portal, the guy found himself in the baptismal altar. He froze for a second, looking at the view that opened up, which looked just like a location from the game. This is usually where 5 new adventurers gather, while all the events from the game are repeated. But for now, Jinfrey needs to remember that this is his reality, and he doesn't have an autosave feature. If he dies, he won't be resurrected. But if a guy uses these memories wisely, he can become a real adventurer. The voice announced that the baptism ceremony would begin in 3 minutes and asked everyone to prepare their weapons. Jinfrey noted that the game was the same. The man rushed forward, warning everyone to select their weapons in order of priority. The woman and the man grabbed the guard's spear together and began to fight for the weapon. Another guy has his eye on a red sword. Another one, flying up to him like a bullet, declared that the sword was his. Jinfrey watched this bacchanalia, noting that it was the same every time. It was a system of forced choice of professions. At baptism, you are given a choice of professions to learn. However, this list is limited. The newbies were foaming at the mouth trying to get something imby for themselves. The guy tried to approach the choice of profession responsibly. The man apologized for the fact that the best part went to him. Looking at the weapons, Jinfrey wondered what he should choose. He noticed an ordinary dagger. The man laughed at the fact that the guy wanted to choose a dagger with the power of 1 in attack and warned him not to regret his choice later. Of course, a sane adventurer would hardly take such a weapon, but Jinfrey stated that in this world, the concept of common sense was distorted. The opinions of ordinary extras do not apply to real people, and that is why he will choose an ordinary dagger. The voice announced the beginning of the baptism ceremony. The assembled group had 5 minutes to kill as many monsters as possible. This type of monster appeared only in the altar location, Honey Centipede. Their venom can paralyze a person. The man approached the boy, asking the kid to try not to die. Jinfrey didn't understand what he had done to him, and decided that he would ignore the man. The gong rang, and the monsters rushed to attack. The guy noted that the creatures behave exactly the same as in the game. This means that their weaknesses have not changed either. The monster lunged at Jinfrey, but he warned him not to underestimate it. Taking out a dagger, the guy rushed at the monster. A moment later, the system announced that the honey centipede had been defeated. The rest of the guys were shocked by what they saw. It was a direct hit on target. The man praised the guy, but he did not understand how he managed to defeat her with 1 blow. Every game has a bug, and this is no exception, although it only works in this location. If you hit a honey centipede in the weak spot with a regular dagger, it will die in 1 hit. The same bug was in the game itself, and only the guy knows about it. The others also rushed into battle. There was only one thought in their heads. They had to kill at least someone. The man swung his spear, and the system announced that the honey centipede had been defeated. He was incredibly proud of being a swordsman. Jinfrey didn't think it was a good place to shout, as the man would only draw attention to himself. Besides, it wasn't a popular profession among players. Lost in thought, the guy didn't notice the monster flying at him and managed to dodge only at the last moment. Jinfrey noted that it is much more fun here than in the game. Seeing the monster decide to strike him in the back, the guy immediately reacted by striking back. Another honey centipede has been defeated. A voice announced that the ceremony had come to an end. As a result of baptism, they will be given a profession that suits their their skills. The guy was upset that he could only kill 7. Now he won't get a good profession. One of them failed to kill anyone at all, which is why he failed to register. The man was glad that he was able to kill 15 enemies. Now he would be able to become a swordsman. Looking at Jinfrey, he asked what his result was. Seeing the guy's table, the man froze in surprise. It turns out that Jinfrey killed as many as 33 monsters, which is why any profession is now available to him. Turning around, the man decided that he had done well too, because he could become a swordsman after all. Jinfrey noted that with 15 kills, the probability of this profession appearing was only 2%, so he was very lucky. In this game, the most powerful professions are swordsman and summoner. After a few moments of thought, Jinfrey finally tapped the screen. As it turned out, the guy chose the profession of potion maker. Everyone was shocked by this choice. The man even asked if he was an idiot. He didn't understand how it was possible to choose a potion maker with such a list. Jinfrey believed that this stupid profession would only be revealed in the hands of an experienced player. The guy thought that something should have fallen out for him. It wasn't for nothing that he killed 33 monsters. Jinfrey looked carefully at his inventory because these items can only be obtained in this location. Honey Centipede Sting, 4 pieces, Honey Centipede Wing, 5 pieces, 2 vials with Honey Centipede blood, and 1 regular dagger. In addition to his profession, Jinfrey received the ability to synthesize. He specifically chose this profession to get the opportunity to create a weapon that can destroy this world. The synthesis was completed, and Jinfrey received the Centipede weapon. An adventurer's strength is determined by his profession and level. Equipment is just a tool used for defense and attack. However, in this world, there are also special types of equipment that show their power regardless of your profession and level. Among pro players, such specimens were nicknamed hidden weapons. Jinfrey got to the first continent, the city of new adventurers, Lagobigin. The guy was glad that he finally reached the first continent, noting that everything was the same here. Jinfrey had already received a profession and created a weapon. Now he needed to think of a plan for further action. The goal of this game is extremely simple. Each continent has S-class dungeons. The player's task is to kill all the bosses on the 7 continents. But for this, the boy had to become stronger. He decided that it was time for him to go to the dungeon. Dungeons are also divided into ranks. Everyone starts their passage from the lowest, rank F, but the guy decided to enter a dungeon of rank C. The conditions of the cleanup were the destruction of the main boss. The system warned that the guy would not be able to leave the dungeon until he fulfilled the cleanup conditions. The recommended level for clearing a C-rank dungeon ranges from 17 to 30. There's nothing for a beginner to do here. Jinfrey decided to see if it was really that dangerous here. A level 17 devil plant immediately appeared on his path. The guy immediately summoned his weapon. Of course, the difference of 16 levels was a little scary. However, he was confident that he would kill the monster with the first blow. The devilish plant immediately rushed to attack. Jinfrey noted that he was fast, but he already knew all the monster's attacks by heart, and his weak spot was precisely in the bud. The system notified that the guy had delivered a precise blow to the devil plant's vulnerable points. The perception skill had worked. The devil plant had been defeated. Jinfrey's level was raised to level 10. Thanks to the murder of the devil plant, he leveled up quite a bit. The guy noted that it was even a bit too fast. In this game, health points and mana points increase automatically with each level. For each new level, you get 5 status points. Since the guy had enough strength, he decided to pump everything into defense. Jinfrey has increased both his level and stats, all thanks to his weapons. The Centipede has the perception skill. His weapon's attack power was currently 66, so he would be able to clear a B-rank dungeon without any problem. But the weapon's true potential would only be revealed with time. Jinfrey couldn't wait for that moment. He decided that since it was too early for him to go to the boss, he would continue to level up. As a result, the guy was surrounded by noir snakes of the 23rd and 24th levels, a mid-level monster of Dungeon C. The chance of encountering 3 snakes is only 1%. The monster instantly rushed to attack the enemy. Having dodged, the guy noticed that the snakes were still just as fierce. Jinfrey again barely managed to dodge the monster's new attack. The guy forced himself to pull himself together and not give in to panic. He's already fought against them, so he already knows their weak points. There is a soft tissue in the neck area. If you pierce it, the enemy will be hit 3 times. However, when Jinfrey tried to attack one snake, another blocked his path. The guy didn't expect the monster to rush to defend his friend. At this time, the 3rd snake took advantage of the enemy's confusion and sank its fangs into his shoulder. Jinfrey immediately slashed with his blade, cutting off the snake's head. Thanks to this, the guy was able to increase his level to 13. As expected, one bite took away almost all of Jinfrey's HP. However, the guy foresaw this situation. It wasn't for nothing that he pumped all his points into defense at level 10. Even though almost all of his HP was taken away, he didn't die. Jinfrey was able to create all the conditions for activating the second skill of the centipede. The second skill was Divine Speed, which increased agility by 10 times when the user was on the verge of death. Both beasts were immediately defeated by Jinfrey. The guy just apologized, saying he wasn't going to just die. His level went up to 17. Jinfrey noted that he had leveled up quite well, even though he had almost died. It would be nice for him to restore his health, but then the skill would stop working. It would be sad to refuse such a tasty bonus. He thought he could hold out for a while. However, Jinfrey knew that it was no longer worth the risk. The monster barely had time to open its mouth when the guy flew past it like a bullet. The defeated enemy immediately fell to the ground like a stone. With this skill, killing monsters became even easier for the guy. It was not for nothing that he activated it. Now Jinfrey's leveling will go faster. After killing the boss, he will be able to apply the new synthesis. For this, the guy will need water, thorny grass, a large bunch of blueberries, a caterpillar, skull jelly leaves, a blood flower, and a chestnut seed. Synthesizing a D-rank item requires a lot of ingredients. The guy had the impression that he was cooking something from real life. Such aspects spoiled all the fun for him. Eventually, Jinfrey decided that grumbling wouldn't help matters. He needed to have time to collect everything before meeting with the boss. Having picked the blueberries, the guy noted that the work was going quickly. Suddenly, Jinfrey heard someone calling his name. Turning around, the boy recognized the man as a resident of his village. He noted that at first he did not believe that the loser Jinfrey had become an adventurer. Julius became an adventurer 2 to 3 years ago, so the boy found it strange that he was still walking around such dungeons. The man thought it was very funny that the boy chose the profession of a potion maker. Julius added that the guy's weapon was also so-so. The man's companion asked who he was. He replied that he had known Jinfrey since childhood. His family was the poorest in their village and told him not to pay attention because the guy had always been strange. Jinfrey's father died long ago and his mother is bedridden. The guy didn't understand why he met Julius. Jinfrey's father died when he was young, and his mother is still looked after by his younger sister. He became an adventurer to earn money. Julius was unhappy that the boy did not listen to them. He reminded them that he had not been beaten for a long time. Jinfrey didn't know what to do with the man. Suddenly, a loud roar broke the silence. Julius's companion looked ahead in fear, unable to say a word. A level 31 Cyclops boss appeared in front of them. Julius immediately declared that they needed to run away from here and did not understand why the guy was standing. Jinfrey realized that the boy had already become Cyclops' target. No one even had time to react when the boss raised his weapon and struck. The guy was knocked down with just one blow. Cyclops' skill was the all-seeing eye. Fighting the boss with such a difference in levels is extremely dangerous. His defense is too strong. Jinfrey understood that if he did not hurry, he would repeat the fate of that guy. The guy hurried to hide before the boss noticed him. In addition, the Cyclops has a skill in which he focuses on only one target. Unfortunately, Jinfrey was unable to take cover and became that very target. The guy realized that he had no other choice. Jinfrey knew all his movements, and thanks to his divine speed, he could dodge the enemy's attacks. Julius watched what was happening with surprise. He didn't believe that the guy in front of him was definitely Jinfrey. The guy understood that he wouldn't defeat the boss by running away alone. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Jinfrey jumped onto the monster's club. Cyclops tried to grab the guy in his fist, but he managed to jump up. For a moment, the monster froze, surprised by what had happened. The guy decided that he needed to act now, while the Cyclops' neck was open. Jinfrey realized that all his fears had been confirmed. The blow did not cause any damage to the monster. However, Cyclops reacted to the blow, trying to get rid of the enemy. Jinfrey managed to avoid the attack, jumping off the monster. It was hard for the guy to fight with such a difference in levels. Julius continued to hide at this time, watching Jinfrey from the bushes. He noted that the guy was too fast and decided that he had some kind of buff on him. Jinfrey knew he couldn't create it this way. He already has a large blueberry cluster, thorny grass, and blood flower. They can be found nearby. If it weren't for the boss, he would have gotten them long ago. Looking towards Julius, the boy realized that all the necessary ingredients were next to him. The man became scared when he saw Jinfrey running towards him. The guy quickly ran past Julius, collecting the necessary items along the way. He only had one last ingredient left: water. Jinfrey ran into the lake, having obtained the last necessary item. Without wasting time, the guy immediately used synthesis. He created a rank E poison. Once it enters the body, a person's health will gradually decrease with each passing second. Julius immediately rushed to remind the guy that the Cyclops has a high resistance to poisons. Adding that such a low-ranking poison would not work on him, Jinfrey calmly replied that he knew. The guy used the spinal fluid of the snake Noir. His goal was to synthesize a common poison with it. Thanks to this, Jinfrey created a potent poison. Julius was shocked that the guy synthesized the same item twice. However, that was not all, and Jinfrey used synthesis again. The centipede received a poisonous attribute. This was the true power of his weapon. Julius was still in shock that the guy had synthesized the poison 3 times and gotten a new attribute. While the man was busy watching Jinfrey, Cyclops managed to sneak up from behind. The guy calmly apologized to the thug for the wait and suggested a second round. Cyclops tried to strike, but thanks to his ability, Jinfrey managed to constantly avoid being hit. The guy's body clearly remembered all the enemy's movements. Jinfrey jumped up and delivered the finishing blow. The Cyclops has been inflicted with a severe poison status. Its health will decrease every second. The monster immediately roared loudly, causing the poison to be removed from the body. Jinfrey warned that he would inflict poison with each hit. A moment later, the Cyclops was once again inflicted with the severe poison status. But the monster continued to remove the poison from its body. This went on several times. The guy would apply the status and Cyclops would remove the poison from the body. In the end, Jinfrey decided that poisoning him was a good idea. Now he was ready to deliver the decisive blow. Taking aim, the guy aimed the dagger straight at the Cyclops' eye. Jinfrey managed to land a precise blow to the monster's vulnerable point. The perception skill worked. The Cyclops was defeated, and the guy was awarded experience points. Julius couldn't believe his eyes. He doubted that this was exactly the Jinfrey he knew. Julius immediately hurried to run away, asking not to kill him. However, Jinfrey was only interested in his status now. The guy managed to raise his level to 23. He decided that as soon as he accumulated 90 status points, he would immediately distribute them. In the meantime, he looked into his inventory. He received 350,000 gold as a reward for defeating the dungeon boss, and a Cyclops Fang was added to the inventory. Jinfrey was happy that he got a lot of gold from the boss and decided that he would send half to his mother. The guy was very comfortable playing alone. He didn't have to share anything with anyone. However, what interested him most was what he had come here for, the Eye of the Cyclops. The guy noted that he certainly didn't look like much. He only had one last ingredient left, and he would be able to create a new weapon. Jinfrey found himself in the Flat Plane, a D-rank dungeon. He finally got here. The guy remembered this dungeon very well. The player's main goal is to clear out high-ranking bosses on all continents. First, Jinfrey had to deal with the first one. For this, the guy needed a new weapon, which is stored there. To solve the riddle of the fallen goddess, Jinfrey needs the Eye of the Cyclops and one more item, which is what he came here for. And, of course, no one canceled training. To cleanse the world of all monsters, achieving a peaceful existence for people. Provide your family with everything they need. Jinfrey promised that he would shut the mouth of anyone who previously did not believe in him when he became stronger. The guy will definitely achieve his goals. The voice suggested starting the day with them, the Adventurers Association. The main star would be a newbie who killed 33 monsters during the baptism, setting a new record. This event became the most discussed among other adventurers. According to the guild, this guy's name is Jinfrey Vanraj. He has black hair and blue eyes, and he is currently in the adventurer's starting town. The guy thought it was strange that he walked here all day but never met her. He collected a lot of materials, but did not find the cobalt bird, although in the game they were not such rare creatures. There are 7 dungeons on each continent, starting from F rank and ending with A rank, and one more S rank, where the boss lives. Here in the D rank dungeon, these birds should live. Jinfrey decided he had no choice but to find out about it in the city. The guy walked along the streets, remembering that there should be a store somewhere here. Having finally found what he was looking for, Jinfrey was about to go inside, but was stopped by someone's voice from inside. The man told his companions to get lost. He pushed the guy to get out of the way. The men were rejoicing at their big catch. Jinfrey assumed they were robbers. The man pushed the girl walking next to him so that she would not get in the way. She almost flew down the steps, but Jinfrey managed to catch the girl. He looked with displeasure after the departing bandits. Hugging her frightened daughter, the woman thanked the guy. She began to calm the girl down, assuring her that the bad guys had already left. The man standing nearby cursed these scum of the mountain hounds. The boy recognized the shop owner by his voice. He said that the mountain hounds were a new guild. They had raised the entire area under their control and were now demanding that the shop owners pay for their work. The man added that he had heard that they were responsible for the mass capture of cobalt birds. Jinfrey was shocked that he got the information he needed so quickly. The man added that the worst thing was that they had no sense of honor. They were ready to maim even children and women. At this rate, he would have to close his shop. Thinking about these mountain hounds, the boy decided that this was bad. The guild is a group of adventurers, and it can't stand up to such a number. Causing harm to innocents, 10%, and poaching cobalt birds, 90%, added up to a frantic motivation to punch someone in the face. Jinfrey clearly decided that he would not let them go just like that. The man bragged that he had stolen it from a local store. Another added that the master had said they needed to expand their reach. Jinfrey was just convinced that this was indeed a guild of thieves. He wanted to find out where they kept the feathers of the cobalt bird. Among the carts with the rest of the cargo, the guy noticed exactly what he was looking for. Jinfrey realized that it was because of them that he could not find a single bird. The men began discussing the latest news about the guy who killed 33 monsters. One of them said it was all a lie. Jinfrey realized that there were too many of them and wondered what he should do. A voice was heard from behind the guy, asking what he was doing there. Jinfrey assumed that they all had a thief profession. There is a special skill stealth given out there, so it is not surprising that he did not notice it. Jinfrey tried to justify himself, but the guy didn't really believe him. He told that recently a guy from another guild was also wandering around and asked Jinfrey to guess what happened to him. The robber snatched a dagger and tried to attack the guy. Jinfrey noted that he was very fast and decided that nothing could be done. The guy hit the robber on the leg and knocked him to the ground. He grabbed his dagger and stabbed it into his neck with the hilt. The men standing around the corner didn't understand what was happening. Noticing the guy, they asked who he was. They assumed he was a new spy from another guild. Jinfrey quickly assured them that this was not the case and that he did not want to fight them. He just wanted feathers. However, the dagger in his hand did not allow the men to believe his words. The robbers decided that he was following them and were afraid that their partner was dead. Jinfrey realized that they wouldn't be able to have a conversation and would have to act the old-fashioned way. One of the robbers rushed at the guy, raising his weapon high. Jinfrey managed to dodge, striking back at the face. The guy assumed that if he didn't deal with them quickly, reinforcements would arrive. He compared it to fighting alone against an angry mob, adding that it was annoying. Another robber tried to attack from behind, but the guy managed to duck. Another one wanted to strike with a spear, but Jinfrey took the weapon away, striking back. The system notified that the guy had hit his opponent in a vulnerable spot, and the perception skill had been activated. Jinfrey apologized, thinking it had been too painful. In revenge for his comrade, the robber tried to hit the guy with an axe, but Jinfrey managed to react again. In response, he struck him in the neck with the handle of a dagger. That's why the guy didn't want to fight with them. Looking around, he only grumbled that they had made too much of a mess, but he just needed the feathers of a cobalt bird. Jinfrey spun around, blocking the bandit's attack with his dagger. The man admitted that not everyone can fight off his attack from behind. Jinfrey decided that he had turned on the stealth skill again. He recognized the robber as the man who had pushed the girl. He introduced himself as the deputy head of the Mountain Hounds, Sabo Masuo, and asked if the boy had heard that name. Jinfrey just shook his head, not understanding what was cool about that name. The man said that he remembered him because the guy blocked his path. Jinfrey only noted that they steal so much goods but cannot buy normal ovens for themselves. The man looked like he wasn't even 20, but he noted that he fought well. He assumed that Jinfrey had gotten lucky and gotten a cool weapon. The man added that the weapon is just a trinket. Everything depends on professional skills. Masuo added that just by looking at the guy, you can tell what profession he has chosen. After all, this basic clothing is given out when choosing the profession of potion maker. He added that the guy's class is so-so, of course, but his weapon is cool. The man assumed that this was the only reason he was still on his feet. He thought that Jinfrey had never fought against adventurers before. Raising his hand, the man summoned several blades to himself and then pointed them towards the boy. However, Jinfrey managed to deftly parry all the blows. Masuo stated that in these battles, the winner is the one who first finds out the opponent's profession. Since the guy only had synthesis as a skill, the man won in terms of physical strength. However, he believed that Jinfrey didn't even know what his profession was. The guy assumed that he was a thief because he used the stealth skill. The bandit immediately objected that he was a summoner. Jinfrey only smirked at the fact that he himself had blabbed everything. Fighting against thieves is quite unpleasant because they have the stealing skill. The guy will be offended if his centipede is taken away, so he decided that he couldn't delay at all. Jinfrey jumped up, wanting to strike, but was distracted by his accomplices who appeared from behind. Apparently, they used stealth again because the guy didn't notice them. Jinfrey barely managed to dodge the attack. In response to this, the guy again struck at the enemy's vulnerable point. He burst into a scream of pain that could be heard throughout the street. His comrades kept trying to bring the man to his senses, but he did not respond. Even his eyes turned pale. Jinfrey only apologized, assuring that he didn't do it on purpose. However, the battle was not over yet. Jinfrey warned that if they did not want to refuse on the spot of the defeated, they must immediately give him the feathers of the cobalt bird. The men were incredibly frightened and did not immediately understand what was required of them. One of the robbers was about to bring what was needed, but their other comrades arrived. They thought that Jinfrey was a spy from another guild because he killed all their guys. The guy again rushed to assure everyone that this was not the case and that they had simply misunderstood everything. One of the robbers noted that in order to attack the mountain hounds, you need to have balls of steel. His comrade noticed the man lying foaming at the mouth. They were surprised to recognize him as the deputy head. Taking a closer look at him, they only became convinced that the man was completely out of his mind. The bandits couldn't believe that the guy had managed to defeat Sabo himself. They assumed that perhaps the man had overindulged a bit again, and that was why he had lost. Jinfrey was sure that he hadn't been drinking, but was simply overconfident. The man who approached loudly asked what was going on here. The robbers immediately recognized him as the leader. Several guys ran up to him and started telling him what had happened. Jinfrey watched the man, who was apparently the guild leader, closely. The man was unhappy that someone had attacked them again. What surprised him most was that the guy even beat up Sabo. The leader admitted that his brothers were certainly not the best, but he didn't understand what they had done to the other guild that the guy had beaten them up. Jinfrey immediately replied that he was not a member of anything. The chief was shocked that he had single-handedly taken out all of his guys. Jinfrey had not expected such a reaction. The man only laughed cheerfully at such news. The leader immediately invited the guy to join them. Jinfrey didn't know how to react to this and froze in shock. The chief added that under normal circumstances, he would have beaten the guy up and made him apologize. But since he even laid out Sabo, it would be a sin to let such a guy go. The man decided that Jinfrey was so happy he couldn't even speak and suggested that they go to a bar to celebrate his entry. The guy asked if the man was joking. He said he was only here for the cobalt bird feathers. He didn't understand who would want to join their third-rate scum guild. Jinfrey said that since they had decided everything, let them give him the feathers and he would leave. The leader really didn't like his statements about his guild. Jinfrey added that they only attack the weak because they are no match for the strong. The man immediately pulled out his weapon and swung it at the guy. The impact came from the side, breaking the stonework on the road. The head immediately stated that he was taking his words back. He noted that Jinfrey was the first person to dodge his attack so deftly. He would not kill the boy, but he would beat him to death and then sell him into slavery. Jinfrey realized that this was a crushing force, which meant that the man was definitely not a thief. The leader attacked again, but Jinfrey managed to dodge. The guy didn't want to see his professional skills, so he needed to be dealt with quickly. Jinfrey ducked to avoid being hit. The guy stood up abruptly and struck back at the leader. The man was shocked that Jinfrey had just hit him. The attack was quite strong, but the guy attacked with the back of the dagger. Jinfrey decided that the man understood everything. A moment later, the leader put away his weapon. Jinfrey was surprised by this action. The guy decided that this meant that the chief's profession was reprisal. Reprisal is a passive skill of the fighter profession. The status of strength is doubled for 3 minutes, provided that the weapon is put away in the inventory. The bandits immediately began to encourage the boss. Jinfrey realized that he was right about the man's profession after all. The leader tried to strike again, but Jinfrey managed to dodge. The guy understood that if he got hit with this skill, he definitely wouldn't get out alive. Jinfrey immediately struck at the vulnerable points. The guy's perception skill was activated. Everyone froze in surprise when the leader fell flat on the ground. The bandits didn't know what to do now. They assumed that maybe it was the new guy from the news. They did say that he was dressed in a basic potion maker's robe. He also has black hair and blue eyes. The boys suddenly realized that it was definitely him. Turning, Jinfrey addressed the bandits standing nearby. The guys immediately jumped up and ran away. Jinfrey didn't understand how they knew his name and why they decided to leave their leader. However, he decided that it didn't make any difference to him after all. He came for the feathers. Jinfrey went to Sigrun Falls, B-rank dungeon. There he managed to defeat the dungeon boss Baphomet, for which he was awarded experience points. Jinfrey headed towards that same fallen goddess. If he guesses her riddle, he will receive new cool things. He gave the feather to the goddess, assuring her that he would help her get back what she had lost. You don't even have to think to understand what the goddess was missing. Of course, many guessed that a Cyclops eye needed to be inserted into the left eye socket. However, few noticed the gap in one of her wings. This is where the cobalt bird's feather came in handy. The system notified that the guy had fulfilled the wish of the fallen goddess. The fallen goddess could not hold back her tears of gratitude at this gesture. Jinfrey will finally get her second secret weapon. The guy noted that, of course, it was not easy to get it. Lucifer's heavenly halo. Jinfrey thanked the goddess for it. The guy decided to try on his new purchase, noting that he now looked like some kind of dead person. Jinfrey didn't want to stand out too much, and with it he would be considered a weirdo rather than a cool cool adventurer. Since he had obtained Lucifer's halo, it was time for the boy to head to the first S-rank dungeon. However, Jinfrey had one problem. Rank dungeon, Angie Volcano. According to the guild rules, only a group of 7 people can enter here. Jinfrey wasn't thrilled that he would now have to throw a party. In the game, after clearing an S-rank dungeon, the demon can be reborn again, but in a different part of the map. After completing the first dungeon, you are given a title. This is a direct ticket to the second region. Jinfrey would like to go there as soon as possible. The guy heard people nearby discussing the Fire Mage group. Jinfrey was very attracted by this information. What attracted him most was the figure of Frayne Asher, who was a magician. Jinfrey's skill, Arver 1, Mind Reading, has been activated. Sire rank dungeon, but she was 1 fighter short. The guy noted that the halo immediately justified its cost. After talking, the man decided that it was time for them to go home today. Jinfrey came up, apologized, and said he would like to join their team. Everyone immediately noticed the guy's halo. Even without the ability to read minds, Jinfrey understood that they were laughing at him. The guy said that they decided to stop looking for new members of the group and suggested looking for partners elsewhere. The system reported that he was feeling uneasy, worried about the injured team members who were currently in the hospital. Their partner was injured during the mission. Now they are 1 member short of entering the dungeon. Jinfrey said he wanted to hear the group's leader's opinion first. The guy noted that the woman looked special. If she wanted to get into the S-rank dungeon so much, then why were they turning him down? Frayne said it was none of his business. She was worried about her father, who had gone into an S-rank dungeon a month ago. His group had never returned. Jinfrey realized that the woman was also very worried. The guy was surprised when he learned that she was concerned about his health, given the halo above his head. He apologized, noting that he should have introduced himself right away. He said that his name was Jinfrey and that he wanted to go to the S-rank dungeon as well. The woman noted that she had heard this name somewhere before, and the guy standing next to her said that this was the same Jinfrey. They remembered that this was the guy they were talking about on the news, the new guy who killed 33 monsters at the baptism. The guy finally realized what was going on. He was in an adventurer's report. He didn't think he would stand out like that. Frayne felt like the guy was reading her mind. She wasn't one to believe the news, but this guy didn't seem like your average adventurer. It was as if he had already seen all the chaos of this world and knew what was what. It was a strange feeling. Frayne felt a thrill. She felt excitement and anticipation as she looked at the boy. The woman said that she would take him into the group, adding that if he gets in the way, then they will leave him there. The squad went to the Agni Volcano, an S-rank dungeon. In the end, Jinfrey was put first. Not the best position, especially in case of a collision with a monster, and that girl went behind. The man didn't trust the guy and was worried whether everything would be okay. Frayne assured that there was no need to worry. The main thing was to point the guy in the right direction. At worst, they use it as bait. The guy asked Jinfrey if he was really that guy from the news. Jinfrey hadn't listened to the news and had no idea what it was about, so he simply replied that he didn't. Arthur was confused and did not trust the guy. The man told him not to believe any rumors and said that Jinfrey was not like that guy at all. He added that the halo didn't mean anything yet. The guy was already tired of it. His halo may have looked stupid, but it was actually very useful. Jinfrey gained a second skill, Sense Magical Power. He noticed a suspicious movement. Monsters from the top of the mountain came down here. The guy didn't believe it right away. Jinfrey immediately ordered the store to put up protective barriers. The man froze, not understanding what was happening. The guy hurried him, saying that the eruption would begin soon. The man did not believe his words, looking at the guy with suspicion. Suddenly, the volcano roared, beginning its eruption. Jinfrey reported that the collapse had begun and ordered action to be taken quickly. The man immediately reacted by using reflection magic. A protective dome appeared around the squad. Noticing that it was raining rocks, Jinfrey knew they would have to wait until it died down. Frayne told everyone to stay put. Taking up her weapon, she used Meteor Breeze. By directing the wave towards the flying boulder, the woman smashed it into pieces. Jinfrey realized that she possessed the element of fire, and she easily reflected all the stones. Suddenly, an earthquake began, and the path they were standing on began to collapse. Arthur, unable to restrain himself, flew into the resulting gorge. Jinfrey managed to catch the guy in time, grabbing his hand. However, the stones continued to fall, dragging Jinfrey down with them. Instead of solid ground, the boys landed on a downy bat. Jinfrey admitted that they were very lucky to have fallen on her. As a bonus, the halo gave him a plus 100 luck. Noticing the bat looking at them suspiciously, the boy realized it was time for them to run away. Jinfrey said that this monster absorbs all incoming blows and then reflects them back at the enemy and told the guy to be careful. Arthur just nodded, assuring that he knew it. Jinfrey braced himself as he noticed the monster advancing on them. The bat screamed loudly, spreading its wings. Jinfrey lunged at the boy, knocking him down and shielding him from the pile of rocks. He once again told Arthur to be more careful if he did not want to die here. The guy realized that if he hadn't been pushed away, he would have already turned into a pancake. but this monster wasn't even S rank yet. Jinfrey easily killed his opponent with one blow. Arthur froze in surprise, not believing his eyes. He was shocked that the guy managed to kill the monster with one attack. Freyna decided to look at her vital signs. The man asked her with concern what was going on. The woman assured that everything was fine and Arthur was alive. She kept thinking about how this strange guy had taken a risk to save Arthur. I felt the earthquake before everyone else. The guy said that they would also come down, but Freyna immediately and firmly answered no. The woman said that they still had a battle ahead of them, so there was no point in wasting their energy on that. Their task was to defeat the demons and bring peace back to the continent. Freyna suggested continuing to the summit and meeting them along the way. The woman said that Arthur was her brother. She personally trained him, so there was no point in worrying. Realizing that the leader of the squad was his older sister, Jinfrey assumed that they had come here to look for their father. The guy said he moved on. Arthur asked where he was going, since the demon was on the top of the mountain. Jinfrey decided that the guy wanted to die, since he decided to challenge a demon of such a level. The guy said that he personally was going to the monster's lair. Arthur felt conflicted and thought about his desire to become stronger. Jinfrey offered him to come with him if he wanted to become stronger. The guys came to the gathering place of all evil spirits. Noticing the many phoenixes, Arthur was afraid that their levels were higher than those of the bat. Without further ado, Jinfrey drew his weapon, preparing for battle. Swinging his blade, the guy began to chop down enemies left and right. Arthur understood that one-on-one was okay, but against the whole pack it would be difficult. The guy barely managed to dodge, noticing the approaching phoenix before it shot a stream of fire at him. Having taken out his weapon, the guy noted that the enemy was strong. The bird rushed forward again, preparing for a new attack. Arthur swapped his dagger for a bow and arrow, realizing that he couldn't win in close combat. He decided that it would be better to take a comfortable position further away and shoot. The arrow pierced the enemy's throat and the bird flew to the ground. Arthur said that there was no need to bother with him, and that he definitely wouldn't lose one-on-one. The guy decided to see how Jinfrey was doing and froze in shock. He sat calmly by the fire, and nearby lay the carcasses of his defeated enemies. While eating the meat that was given to him, Jinfrey asked his partner if he was finished. Arthur was shocked that he had already dealt with all the monsters. Jinfrey realized that something wasn't right with him. It seemed he had overeaten, but the meat didn't give any buffs. The guy immediately felt a stream of magical power heading here. As Jinfrey finished chewing his meat, he was angry that this had happened now. Meanwhile, a level 45 salamander snuck up on the guys. They were surprised to realize that this was the main boss of the dungeon. As luck would have it, Jinfrey developed stomach problems and his current stats decreased. Overcoming his nausea, Jinfrey warned Arthur to be careful. This monster increased its stats by eating people. Those creatures were not even close to it. The salamander rushed into battle, trying to hit Arthur with its tail. Jinfrey immediately asked with concern if everything was okay with the guy. Arthur said that this was too much. Jinfrey promised that he would sort it out and told the guy to hide somewhere. The guy slyly asked if the monster also had stomach problems and said that nothing would fit in it anymore. Noticing the state of the salamander, Jinfrey was afraid that she was going to vomit. And indeed, the next moment the monster vomited the contents of its stomach. Jinfrey noticed human bones among this mess. Arthur looked at this picture in fear, unable to move. Jinfrey suggested ending it quickly before he suffered the same fate as the monster. Arthur realized that these clothes and sword belonged to his father. The boy felt angry. He wanted to avenge his father and kill the salamander. Looking up at the monster with a look full of rage, Arthur promised that he would kill him. Having taken out his weapon, the guy immediately rushed forward. Jinfrey tried to stop him, ordering him not to get into trouble. However, Arthur didn't even think of listening to him. The salamander lashed out with its tail, sending Arthur flying backwards, knocking him to the ground. The boy wiped his face, confidently declaring that he would kill the monster. Arthur tried to rush at the salamander again, but Jinfrey managed to intercept him. He again, this time shouting, ordered the guy to wait. Arthur ordered him to be released, but Jinfrey only explained that the salamander could not be defeated alone. The guy asked what would happen to Arthur's family if he died here. He tried to convey to Arthur that this was not an opponent he could handle one-on-one. The guy understood this, but it wouldn't make him back down. Arthur was angry with himself because he was powerless in this situation. After letting the guy go, Jinfrey apologized for yelling at him. The guy assumed Arthur was a hunter. He noted that it was not the most suitable profession here and asked if he had anything in his inventory. Arthur only had arrows, heels, and wool from a downy bat, although he didn't understand where it came from. Jinfrey explained that it was due to the hunter's hidden passive and suggested taking something useful with him. Arthur didn't know about any hidden passive, but Jinfrey said they would talk about it later. He told the guy to listen carefully because he had a plan. He decided that they would finish off the monster together and it would be their secret. Jinfrey warned them to follow the plan exactly. Since the salamander is not an easy opponent, they will have to resort to trickery. Jinfrey told Arthur to buff him. The boy called upon the power that lived in his words and asked for help in defeating the salamander. Jinfrey has been given a combat animation buff from Arthur. Muscle strength and speed have been increased by 30%, and then they had to use downy bat hair. Jinfrey thanked him for the buff, since now the debuff on his stomach was gone, and told him to just follow the plan. Salamander and Jinfrey rushed towards each other. Since the monster had a lot of HP, you need to damage it many times. Jinfrey, thanks to the increased speed, was able to land multiple blows. The salamander was poisoned, but if you use the centipede's poison, you can stun the monster for a couple of seconds. And then Arthur managed to aim, hitting the salamander right in the head with an arrow. Thanks to this, it was possible to strike at her weak point, her forehead. Arthur was glad that the guy went with him. It would have been difficult for him to manage to hit from such a distance. The monster howled as the paralyzing poison wore off. The boys were happy that their plan worked. Salamander has activated rage mode. Her stats have increased by 30%. Arthur noted that the heat from the monster was now reaching even him. In this mode, all of the salamander's stats were increased. And here, Jinfrey will find the wool of the downy bat useful. The boy jumped up, pointing his fur towards the monster. Jinfrey was glad they were prepared. In this mode, the enemy's vulnerable spot changed. If before it was the forehead, now it is the front paws. Jinfrey cut his leg, causing the mind's eye to activate. The guy was confident that victory was now in their pocket. The guys froze, watching the enemy's actions. Jinfrey noted that the flames around the monster's body had weakened. The salamander was now on the verge of life and death. However, if it managed to absorb the fire surrounding it, the recovery process would start. The salamander's self-resurrection mode was activated. Its HP began to recover. Arthur noted that it would not be easy for them to defeat the monster. If the salamander has time to recover, they won't kill it in 5 minutes, so you need to act quickly. Arthur pulled the bowstring, promising Jinfrey that everything would happen now. The boy gripped the dagger tighter in his hands, preparing for the moment. Jinfrey couldn't wait to finish off this lizard. The boy kept waiting for the salamander to open its mouth. Jinfrey swung his sword at his opponent. The salamander howled, opening its mouth wide. Shouting to Arthur that they needed to act now, Jinfrey threw a ball of wool. Grumbling that he knew it himself, the guy aimed at the monster's mouth. The arrow accurately pierced the tuft of wool that had been thrown up earlier, and she headed further, straight into the open mouth of the salamander. Arthur froze, watching the reaction carefully. He was afraid that their plan had not worked. Jinfrey began the countdown, looking closely at the monster. As soon as the guy counted to 1, the salamander's head burst into pieces. Downy bat fur absorbs damage and then releases it, increasing its power 3-fold. The effect of the combat spirit buff ended. Thanks to it, the stomach debuff was removed. The monster's body fell like a stone to the ground in front of the boys. The salamander was defeated, for which they received experience. Arthur stood on the edge of the cliff, clutching his sword tightly to his chest. Jinfrey removed the halo, not wanting to violate the guy's personal space. Seeing her brother, Freyna immediately rushed to meet him. Arthur immediately told everyone that he had bad news. Freyna immediately noticed her father's sword. Arthur reported that he was spat out by a salamander. Freyna immediately rushed to hug her brother, barely holding back her tears. She insisted that it wasn't the guy's fault and that he had tried hard. Arthur responded by saying that it was all thanks to Jinfrey. Freyna turned a surprised look to the guy. Jinfrey ignored their conversation as he moved rocks. The other guys realized almost immediately what exactly he was doing. They rushed to the guy, offering to help. Freyna realized that they were making a grave for their father. Having thrust the sword into the grave she had created, she wished her father to rest in peace. The brother and sister bowed at the tombstone for a final prayer. The rest of the squad followed their example. Only Jinfrey remained standing aside. Looking at Arthur and Freyna, the guy remembered himself and his sister. I remembered the moment when my tearful mother came into the house to tell me about my father. The guy was pulled out of his thoughts by Freyna's voice, who thanked him for his father and for Arthur. Jinfrey brushed it off, saying he had done nothing out of the ordinary. He added that Arthur was capable of defending himself. The guy immediately stated that he understood the level of his skills. If it weren't for Jinfrey, he wouldn't be here. He admitted that the guy turned out to be much stronger than they said. The man listened with his mouth wide open, not believing what he heard. Jinfrey said the main problem now is at the top of the mountain. The creature that rules the creatures on this continent, the steel bear. Freyna declared that she would grind this creature into dust. The team confidently headed towards the top of the mountain. Confidently fighting off the interfering monsters, they continued on their way. Eventually, they managed to reach the top of Mount Agni. The guy asked where this demon was. Suddenly, the volcano began to erupt, spitting out a large stream of water. Everyone froze, watching what was happening in surprise. A level 50 steel bear appeared in front of them. Its specialty was fire waves. The bear roared, causing everyone to cover their ears from his scream. His voice was incredibly loud. Freyna noted that the enemy was very strong. The bear decided that these pathetic little people had come to die. Jinfrey ordered everyone to retreat, announcing that his first attack would be fire breath. Freyna told everyone to listen to Jinfrey and retreat to a safe distance. Noticing that the guy himself had not moved, the woman was surprised. She did not understand what he was doing and told him to come here. Jinfrey just smirked, continuing to stand in his place. The bear attacked, spewing a stream of fire. The man hurried to make a shield, surprised that the flames had reached even here. Arthur excitedly called out to Jinfrey, who remained near the monster. The bear laughed because he was the only one who didn't manage to escape. The temperature was too high, so he was sure that not a speck of dust would remain of the guy. The squad couldn't believe that Jinfrey had died like that. However, when the smoke from the attack began to clear, the silhouette of a guy appeared through it. The monster was incredibly surprised that Jinfrey survived. Thanks to the phoenix meat he ate, the guy's fire protection worked. Jinfrey said he wasn't hot at all. Arthur was very glad that the boy was okay. Freyna was surprised that Jinfrey was unharmed. Only fire resistance could have avoided such a blow. Arthur now understood why the guy had eaten so much meat back then. Eating 50 phoenix meat would grant her fire resistance for 7 minutes. This did not completely protect Jinfrey, but it did minimize damage. Now the guy was on the verge of death, which meant he could use divine speed. The bear noted that he was not as simple as he was for a human. He had not had such fun for a long time. Steel Bear began to use fire waves. The boys were amazed, not expecting such heat. Due to the fire waves, the burn status was imposed. Because of this, HP will decrease every second. Freyna told them to hide behind a rock, warning that if the heat touched their armor, they would take additional damage. They had everything they needed to survive in the volcanic zone. However, it was not enough to defeat the demon. Arthur didn't understand why Jinfrey was so calm. The guy was prepared for this. Thanks to the fire-resistant status, the damage from the burn status was weakened. The bear noted that he was different from other people. Did he really think he could withstand the damage from the fire? He thought the guy was very arrogant and wanted to teach him a lesson. The guys noted that the monster sank into the lava, which meant that it looked like something was about to start. Jinfrey tightened his grip on the dagger, preparing to attack. The main thing is to watch the bear's movements. The monster suddenly jumped out of the lava and rushed forward. Jinfrey immediately realized that this was a special attack. The guys were shocked that the shockwave reached them too. Freyna noted that the monster was incredibly fast. The bear noted that such an attack could be counterattacked profitably. This little man interested him very much. The bear admitted that he was already bored with this and wanted to shake things up a bit. The monster wondered if the man would be able to repel this attack. Freyna realized that the monster's voice was coming from underground. Arthur didn't understand what was happening and was very surprised to notice that Jinfrey had closed his eyes. The monster suddenly jumped out from under the ground, attacking from behind. Jinfrey's magic power detection kicked in, allowing him to dodge in time. All the guys were shocked by what was happening. Lucifelius Enim allowed one to detect magical power at a distance of 5 kilometers from the wearer. The monster noted that the guy was quick-witted. Jinfrey countered that it wasn't that, he just knew all his moves. The bear told him not to get cocky, deciding that the guy was just lucky. He noted that luck could not last forever. Jinfrey could defend himself further, but the monster promised that he would not give him time to counterattack. The guy just told him to start and stop talking. With the power detection skills, he could find out where the monster was, and with the divine speed, he could counterattack. Jinfrey forced himself to remember everything. He had played this game so many times before. Arthur didn't expect the monster to attack from below. The bear froze, not understanding where the guy had disappeared to. Raising its head, the monster noticed Jinfrey, who decided to attack from above. The guy flew down, cutting the bear with a dagger from the neck to the navel. Jinfrey grinned slyly, reminding him that someone had said they wouldn't let him counterattack. Arthur was amazed by the guy's actions and thought it was incredibly cool. The bear noted that it was only one attack, and it was too early for the guy to get cocky. He promised that he would not let him get in his way. Jinfrey was surprised because he had never heard this line before. Meanwhile, the monster dived into the lava again. Jinfrey decided that now was not the time to think and ordered himself to pull himself together. The monster tried to strike again, but the guy managed to react. Jinfrey managed to land a critical hit. Her inner instinct kicked in. The monster didn't understand how the guy guessed where he would hit from. Jinfrey was glad he had an inner sense. The steel bear was inflicted with the poisoned status. The monster was very surprised to learn that he had been poisoned. Jinfrey apologized and said that he was not the only one who knew that the bear had no resistance to poisons. He saw nothing wrong with taking advantage of an opponent's weakness. The man noted that the guy was very strong. Even in large squads, many are afraid to fight against demons, but Jinfrey stood with such pride. The boy warned the monster that he needed to hurry. A little more, and he won't be able to attack. Thanks to the effect of the poison, he will soon be gone. The monster warned the boy not to tempt his fate. Arthur was told to retreat or he would take too much damage from the fire. Freyna ordered everyone to retreat to a safer place. Arthur didn't understand why he couldn't fight alongside Jinfrey. the steel bear struck again, breathing out a stream of fire. When the smoke cleared, Jinfrey continued to stand as if nothing had happened. He knew that breathing fire was just the beginning. The enemy's actions were different from the game now. The monster was curious about what force the guy had used to detect his attack last time. Jinfrey wondered if it was too late to think about this. The bear declared that this knowledge would no longer help him. The guy will hardly cope if they attack at the same time. Jinfrey froze in surprise, not expecting such a turn of events. The steel bear split into 3 full-fledged monsters. The guy was scared because this definitely wasn't in the game. However, Jinfrey noted that although their numbers have increased, their actions have not changed. Even though he knows the next attack, it will be difficult to repel it. The monster said that the guy would die first. Due to the increased speed, Jinfrey was now on the verge of life and death. One more attack and he was dead. The whole situation was very explosive. The monster thanked him for entertaining him and promised that his friends would soon follow the boy. The bear rushed forward to deliver the finishing blow. Suddenly, his attack was repelled by a blast of cold. The woman said that it was very low for 3 people to attack one. Freyna noted that it still remains to be decided who is worthless here. The monster decided that the woman was eager to die first. Jinfrey swung his blade, cutting off one of the monster's heads. The guy told Freyna that he was just paying back a debt. He suggested that she finish off the remaining 2. The active skill Inner Sense was activated. The steel bear was defeated. Arthur was very happy with what they had accomplished. Jinfrey concentrated, not forgetting that there were still 2 left. The monster was furious that the boy dared to kill his brother. He rushed forward, wanting to tear his opponent to pieces. Jinfrey and Freyna teamed up, preparing for another attack. The guy was surprised that the woman could also use ice magic. She said that her fire magic was at a higher level than ice magic. The monster was shocked that the woman was okay with being at such a distance. Freyna said that she removed the status through a buff, but it won't last long. Jinfrey stated that he understood everything and told her not to move. The guy rushed to attack using divine speed. Jinfrey's active skill, Inner Sense, also worked. In a few moments, another steel bear was defeated. Although the enemy should have died from the poison, one managed to hide. Jinfrey stated that he could handle the rest on his own and told Freyna to go to the safe zone. The woman asked to let her show her abilities. She summoned solar flames, which increased Jinfrey's attack power 3-fold and also increased her resistance to fire. Freyna added that because of this buff, she cannot cast spells. That was all she could do for the guy, so she wouldn't interfere anymore. Jinfrey thanked the master of fire magic. The bear had relaxed too much. He was going to regain his strength and wipe them all out. The guy asked how long he would be resting and suggested finishing this game of hide-and-seek. The monster was incredibly surprised when he saw the guy next to him in the lava. He didn't understand how this was possible because there was magma here. An ordinary person couldn't get in here. Jinfrey just waved his hand at it. The monster couldn't believe that some little man had defeated him. The boys froze in horror, afraid that an eruption had begun. However, it was only Jinfrey who came out. Arthur immediately rushed to the guy, asking if he was okay. The man asked if it was all over, and Jinfrey happily confirmed that it was. Arthur asked if the demon was defeated, and the guy nodded affirmatively. He wanted to tell his sister about it, but Freyna said that she had heard everything. She thought that this would also be a reward for her father. The level 50 steel bear was defeated, for which experience and rewards were received. Seeing the award, Jinfrey decided that his mother would be scared when she received the transfer. The boy got what he wanted, a rare claw and fang. Freyna asked how they could thank Jinfrey. Arthur noted that without him, they would not have won. They would not have even reached the top. Jinfrey replied that there was no need for gratitude. It was not only his merit. Freyna admitted that she was even ashamed to accept the reward for killing the demon, considering their joint work. Jinfrey replied that it was not worth it, because she had every right to do so. He added that the buff the woman put on at the end really helped. Freyna objected that she still wanted to thank him. Of the interesting things, she got a medium homothermal stone of rarity B. Jinfrey immediately offered to exchange it for a hard claw. The guys were a little surprised that he wanted to exchange an S-class rarity. Freyna noted that the item could only be obtained here, to which Jinfrey noted that the homothermal stone was more important. The woman said that she could just give it away then. Jinfrey was incredibly happy about this, and the woman decided that he was really difficult to understand. The guy felt favor. Freyna expresses her sympathy to him. He also felt envy because Judas felt love towards Freyna. The main thing for the guy was that he received a homothermal stone. His next stop is the City of Desires, which is located on the second continent. Jinfrey arrived at the first great continent, the central city. Freyna said that they had returned to their homeland for the first time since that incident with their father and suggested that the guy meet again sometime. Arthur promised that he would train so as not to lose. Jinfrey was glad that he was able to obtain the homothermal stone without any problems, with which he wanted to go to the first great continent. Even though he still had memories from his past life, he was glad that everything had come together the way it did. He sent money to his family and now thought about the place he needed to go to. Jinfrey came out to the portal of movement between the first and second continents. People were surprised to recognize the guy as the one who defeated the demon, but they were even more surprised by the initial equipment for creating medicine. The system confirmed the battle of the first demon and asked if the guy wanted to move to the second continent. The passerby was surprised that he had moved. His friend decided that he had simply imagined it. Jinfrey arrived on the second continent in the prison of Desire's second life. Having received a message from Emily, the guy was surprised and did not understand how she contacted him. Jinfrey immediately asked his sister what happened. The girl said that she was scared when she received such a large sum and asked what and where he was doing. Emily thought it must be some kind of shady work. Jinfrey kept his adventurer a secret from his family, as they would have been worried, so he only assured them that it was honest work. The girl hoped that everything was okay with the guy and said that things had not been well with her mother lately. Her treatment would require much more money. Jinfrey realized that he could not delay any longer. Men passing by discussed the auction and the new items that were on display there. Jinfrey was immediately interested when he heard about the High Elf's Tear. It was an item that could cure all possible diseases. It was usually not obtainable on the second continent, but if the boy managed to get it, he could cure his mother. At the auction of this continent where the rich gather, a High Elf's Tear would probably be worth millions. Although it would not be easy to obtain, Jinfrey still wanted to participate in the auction. But to do this, he needed capital. The boy arrived at the E-rank dungeon, Itani Snow Plain. The best way to earn money would be to go to a high-level dungeon, but there he was. A level 66 cat appeared near Jinfrey. The guy was glad that he found what he wanted. He decided to use the items he received on the way here. The cat immediately noticed this and meowed contentedly. Jinfrey decided to entice him with frozen fish, snowfield vine, and red flower. The red flower made a very soft and comfortable bed. The cat meowed contentedly again, taking out a gold coin. The sparkling gold coin doubled the amount of money received. Jinfrey thanked the cat for giving him the coin. This hidden item could be obtained by cheering up the cat. Now Jinfrey will earn faster by killing monsters. The guy immediately began to fight enemies left and right. He also killed the dungeon boss and thus collected the minimum amount. Jinfrey noted that this amount would be enough for the army. He wondered whether it would be worth trying to increase it upon arrival in the city. The guy went to a backroom casino. People blinded by greed come here, and you can find anything here. It is a dark place where there is no concept of decency, and people here are merciless towards others. The boy noticed a man who was bragging about winning again. Jinfrey immediately sensed the lie. Enta had earned his money dishonestly. The guy recognized him as the guy who wins all the money and thought of making him his target. The man turned his attention to Jinfrey, asking if he would cry if he offended him. The guy warned him not to be too strict with him. Jinfrey also said that this is his first time here. He looked at the rules and seemed to understand everything. The man assured that it was okay. It was just easy roulette, and for now he would agree with the guy's bets. Jinfrey sensed a lie. The dealer was going to cheat. Roulette has been called the queen of casinos. In this game, the ball is thrown twice, and players choose two numbers they like. If the number matches once, you get half the amount. If twice, double the bet. Players cannot bet on the same number. The man offered the boy to bet first. Jinfrey chose red 36 and black 8. The bet was 10 million, which surprised both the man and the croupier. Jinfrey decided that he had not been heard and asked if he needed to repeat it again. He said again that he was betting 10 million on red 36 and black 8. The guy reminded that there is a rule in the game that the ball will stop if you do not call the bet quickly, and if you do not call the bet, then it will be a loss. Jinfrey told the man to quickly name the number. The croupier did not understand what kind of coincidence this was, and why the guy bet on exactly the numbers he had guessed. Jinfrey reminded them that the ball would stop if they didn't respond. The man's gaze signaled to the croupier to quickly prompt him for his bet. Thanks to the divine halo skills, the guy will say what they are going to say before they even open their mouths. The dealer's job is to act as a hunter. The sniper's eye he used is a professional hunter's skill that allows him to hit all targets. Noticing that 36 red and 8 black actually came up, Jinfrey noted that he was also lucky today. The dealer tells the right person the numbers he will bet in advance, through gestures, but knowing their secret, Jinfrey could use it against them. The man didn't understand how this happened. The croupier only had to call the manager. He claimed that the guy was cheating somehow. The dealer said he had bet 10 million and had guessed both numbers. The manager said that this could happen and suggested they discuss it in his office. Jinfrey noted that these words somehow changed the atmosphere and decided that the man was in cahoots with them. The manager ordered to grab the guy and force him to talk. Jinfrey immediately turned the table over, preventing them from reaching him. The man tried to grab him, but the boy managed to wriggle free. One of the guards pointed an arrow at Jinfrey. The man the boy had beaten rushed towards him with a knife. Giving him a kick in the ass, Jinfrey declared that he was the only one cheating here. The manager admitted that the guy was much stronger than he thought. The man recognized Jinfrey as the guy who was mentioned in the news. The rest of them started whispering that it was he who killed the steel bear so quickly. They didn't understand why the guy came here. The manager immediately fell to his knees, bowed to the floor, and began to apologize to the guy. The man believed that even if it was him who was on the news, he still couldn't win. Only failure awaited him here. The manager admitted that he was very sorry and asked what they could do for the guy. Jinfrey said that he was going to take all the money that was in this establishment. He also asked the manager for an invitation to the auction. He considered it fair payment for being slandered. Jinfrey added that if he refused, people from the Public Safety Association would come to him. The guy arrived at the site of the central auction's second life. He collected the amount he wanted. If he was lucky, he would receive a high elf tier today. Thanks to the invitation, Jinfrey easily got to the auction to compete for the item he needed. The manager was in despair because the guy had completely robbed him. The man raised his head in fear when he noticed the head of the department. The host apologized for keeping everyone waiting and offered to start the auction. He said that they could look at 11 exhibits through the display case. The first exhibit was a huge sword. It was valuable to collectors and had a rarity of A. Jinfrey needed a high elf tier, an ice Dakamera fang, and ancient red earth. He noted that it would be nice if all of these items were up for auction. Among the exhibits, the guy saw pure dragon's sake. If the guy had it, he would have everything he needed. The next lot was a fang of an ice Dakamera. The starting bid was 50,000. Everyone was shocked when someone bet 100,000. Jinfrey was surprised and did not understand who could do such a thing. The manager smiled slyly. He wasn't going to let the guy buy him out. Jinfrey wondered if he hadn't taken all the money from him. The High Elf's tier was the last item on the list, and only the boy could afford it. He needed to save his money for now. Meanwhile, the fang was sold to the Blue Snake Guild for 1 million. This is the richest and most powerful guild on the entire continent. If they have used some goods, then trading with them will only waste your time. Jinfrey noted that everyone says it's such a great guild. The boss pointed to the guy and the manager confirmed that it was he who had ruined the entire casino. Moreover, he was only able to participate because of his invitation. He couldn't give the guy a chance to take advantage of this situation. The chief was surprised that the guy was not going to give in to the guild that secretly controlled the entire city, but he was going to teach him a lesson. The next lot was ancient red earth, valued at 7 million. The host was very surprised when Jinfrey raised the bet to 50 million. Once again, the Blue Snake Guild has beaten the bet by 4 times. Jinfrey couldn't even imagine that they had so much money to increase the bid by 4 times. The Blue Snake Guild got the exhibit again. The boy felt a worthless soul. The man was going to beat all his bets. Jinfrey realized that it would be difficult to obtain a high elf tier this way. His opponent is a great guild. In this situation, it is pointless to count on victory. The Blue Snake Guild has once again taken away an exhibit, a mermaid scale worth 40 million. The guild received the Bloody Killer's knife for 20 million. The guild took the Pure Dragon's Sake for 300 million. The whole auction turned out to be a one-sided game. Couldn't even an angel's halo help him? The man cheerfully stated that the guy couldn't defeat the guild with just one person's capital. The only fool here that Jinfrey considered was the manager himself. The host announced that they had now reached the last slot of today's auction. This exhibit steals people's hearts and eyes, the tier of a high elf. And for such a significant exhibit, the host suggested starting with a bet of 50 million. Jinfrey immediately realized the bet was up to 500 million. Some were very surprised by the sudden increase in the stakes. One man said he would have to back down on the exhibit. Jinfrey wasn't about to give up his tiers so easily. The manager said that it didn't change anything and they would double the rate again. The host announced that the guild had increased the bet to 1 billion, but suddenly a red mark appeared. This meant that the guild representative could not offer such a rate. Jinfrey laughed heartily, pleased that his plan had worked. The presenter apologized and said that the man had exceeded his limit of successful purchases. The manager did not understand what was being discussed, and the host explained that according to the auction rules, one person can only buy 5 exhibits. The man was furious. He didn't even know about such a rule. He was a regular at the auction, but this was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Jinfrey only noted that this auction was not quite ordinary. It was a special auction approved by the Adventurers Association without even being announced in the game itself. This rule prevents some players from monopolizing all the exhibits. Jinfrey noted that the man should have noticed something unusual, given the insane list at this auction. The host asked if they had come to an agreement, but the man was furious. Meanwhile, the presenter announced that the slot was sold to a man with an angelic aura for 50 million. Although Jinfrey was happy, he asked not to call him that. The manager was furious that the guy knew about it. He said that he got away with it by accident at the casino, but he won't let it go. The presenter was scared by his reaction and Jinfrey said he was an idiot. The guy noted that they were not alone here and suggested resolving their dispute outside. He asked him to stop using the spell if the man understood it. The manager was really annoyed by this child. He could easily kill the guy if he fired right now. The chief said the guy was right. Besides, if they resorted to violence, the association would track them down later. The man said that this child had disgraced them. They could not just let it go. The chief reminded him not to make him repeat it twice. Turning around, he headed for the exit and ordered the man to follow him. The manager had no choice but to obey. Even though there were unforeseen circumstances, Jinfrey was glad that he received the High Elf's tier. They took the rest of the needed items, but the guy would be able to get them. He was sad about the wine, though, because he didn't get it. He can still get it on the 5th continent, but he will need to clear a problematic dungeon to do so. Jinfrey decided that he would have to go after those guys again. A voice from the side reported that the guy looked quite strange. The girl noticed Jinfrey's halo and admitted that she had never seen anything like it before. She apologized for the sudden question and asked what kind of relationship the guy had with the Wind Snake Guild. The girl asked if he knew the master, the man with long hair who was standing behind the manager. Jinfrey claimed he didn't know him, but he had some business with the guild. But he pushed the topic aside and asked the girl who she was. She replied that she was an adventurer and said that she was currently monitoring the guild. The association asked Mira to conduct an investigation. Jinfrey was surprised by the mission from the association and assumed that she was one of the 8 Guardians. The 8 Guardians is a collective name for the 8 S-rank adventurers that have been officially recognized by the association. Those who have received this title can receive tasks from the association in exchange for a large reward. Jinfrey felt nostalgic. When he played the game after clearing all the continents, he took the association's missions to kill someone. The guy said that most likely the guild members had already left. Mira wanted to go after them, but first she wanted to ask the guy something. She wondered where Jinfrey got the halo that now hung above his head. The guy was surprised that she didn't know about the existence of this secret element. Now Jinfrey thought about how to explain everything to her. Mira's geek side was interested in this gear. The girl really wanted this angelic halo. Jinfrey just waved it off and said it was a long story. There was a slightly awkward atmosphere between the guys. Mira waved it off, saying that the guy didn't have to tell her. She would look for him herself. Having thanked the guy, she headed away. From his conversation with the girl, Jinfrey realized that she was one of the best 8 Guardians. Mira had been to 7 continents, but she had never seen equipment like this before. She was curious to know who this guy was. Jinfrey arrived at the A-rank dungeon, Lunar Wasteland. The guy managed to defeat the boss of the giant goblin monster level 80. He finally got what he wanted, the Goblin Thief's Glove. It allowed him to steal one of someone else's items. The guy also raised his levels well. Jinfrey had planned to go into the dungeon to get the Ice Chimera Fang, but he decided to get the hidden equipment before going there. This meant that the guy had to steal a few things. This is because getting the wine was very important in order to make the next secret equipment. Jinfrey used magical detection to track them down, waiting for the right moment to attack. The guy noticed that Mira was also here. However, she had been following them long before Jinfrey. The girl also noticed that the guy was watching the guild. Jinfrey was surprised when he saw that they were passing through a secret passage in the wall. This was the private biotope of the Wind Serpent Guild. The manager asked the chief what he thought of this year's harvest. If that didn't change his mood, then the man would definitely have problems. The manager noted that they would be able to sell it for a higher price. He said that he would immediately find people who would help him with this. That way they would be able to get their capital back. The guy smiled and asked if they were into growing flowers. The men were stunned by his appearance. They didn't understand how he managed to get in here at all. Jinfrey noted that this was a moon azalea. Depending on its use, it could be an ingredient for a magical doping. Magic doping can cause auditory and visual hallucinations and, in the worst case, even death. It was banned by the association. The man hesitated, not knowing what to answer. The chief decided that the guy was a spy for the association, but he hastened to assure that this was not the case. Jinfrey offered to give him the wine, and then he would forget about what he saw. The manager became furious again. He reminded him who exactly the guy was talking to. He wanted to attack, but Jinfrey was behind him in an instant. The girl could not hear their conversation at such a distance, but she saw that they had started to fight. Jinfrey said it wasn't a threat. He was just trying to negotiate. He promised to pay for the wine. The manager decided that this was the exhibit the guy came to the auction for. She said that then they would definitely not give it away. Seeing the manager take out his weapon, Jinfrey realized that this was not the way to resolve the situation. He admitted that he was not a fan of this, but apparently he would still have to report this flower to the association. The manager tried to attack the guy, but he didn't even blink. Taking out his weapon, Jinfrey stated that the man had asked for it. The guy was able to knock him down with one blow without much effort. Mira was surprised by what she saw. Besides, she had never seen such a dagger before. The The chief didn't expect the guy to engage in battle with those who work from the shadows. He stated that in that case he should understand what would happen next, because the man had been holding himself back for so long. Jinfrey stated that he had already spent too much time here and it was time to end it. Mira was interested to see how the guy's weapon worked. Each drew his blade, preparing for battle. They rushed forward at each other, crossing swords. Simone's level was much higher than the guy's. The man struck the sword so hard that sparks flew off it. Jinfrey had to work harder to fend off the attacks. Mira only heard about the guy. He is a new adventurer who managed to break all previous records. The guy seemed strong to her, but when it came to a fight, Simona had no equal. From the strong blow, Jinfrey flew back, barely able to stay on his feet. Simone noted that he fights well for a newcomer, but it will not be enough to win. Jinfrey said he doesn't care. He wants to achieve his goal, and he's not going to stop. The man said that he talks too much. Jinfrey concentrated in an attempt to withstand the new attack. Simone had a strange feeling. He thought that he should not use his professional skills. The man was stunned when he saw the boy fighting back with his eyes closed. He assumed that Jinfrey had memorized all of his opponent's movements after seeing his magical abilities, but he had never heard of such a thing before. He had also never seen such a suit before and assumed that it was part of the guy's special equipment. Jinfrey smiled contentedly, having achieved what he wanted. Lucifer's halo has unlocked its third ability. The girl covered her face with her hand from the bright light that emanated from the halo. He could level up by repelling enemy attacks in battle. The higher the enemy's level, the more points he would receive. Usually it takes longer, but since the man had a high level, Jinfrey was able to reach the maximum level much faster. The guy opened his eyes in surprise when he felt his opponent's sword pierce his shoulder. Simone noted that the guy was a fool because he was distracted. He lost because he couldn't use his own power. The man added that the world is big and therefore there will always be someone stronger than you. Jinfrey just chuckled at this. Simone didn't understand why he was still alive. The man didn't understand what had just happened, whether it was his professional skill or something else. Jinfrey asked if Simone thought all this talk about his greatness was ridiculous. Mira noted that there was something strange about this guy. Even Jinfrey's corpse was gone, but the man was sure that he had definitely felt it piercing his body. Suddenly, Simone saw his blood spurt from the sudden blow. The man did not understand what happened and when the guy managed to do it. He noticed that Jinfrey didn't even move and didn't understand how that was possible. Simone was confused. He didn't know what was happening to him. Mira realized that the man had suddenly started hallucinating. Jinfrey hid his blade, watching the man's panic. This was the third ability of the Halo, Phantom Playground. It showed hallucinations to anyone who saw the player's eyes. Mira finally came out of her hiding place, approaching the guy. Jinfrey asked if she found it interesting to watch them. Mira reminded them that she was after the guild, not the guy. Jinfrey pointed out that she could report the Azalea. That would be enough for the association. The guy said goodbye to the girl, saying that he was leaving the cleaning to her. Jinfrey suddenly stopped. He almost forgot the most important thing. The guy took out the goblin glove he had received earlier from his inventory. He apologized to the manager and said that he would take it anyway. Jinfrey was glad that he was finally able to get his hands on the wine. With this, the battle with the second demon god will be much easier. The boy asked his mother to wait a little longer. Mira continued to look at Jinfrey intently. The guy didn't understand what the problem was. He used only legal items. The girl said that she had no objections. The guy replied that in that case it was time for him to go. During the battle, Mira did not see any use of item or professional skills. Therefore, the most likely conclusion was that the power came from the Halo. If the guy used an item banned by the association, then that would change everything. But it doesn't look like that equipment was on the banned list. Jinfrey returned to the city and went to Tobar's workshop. He was going to make new secret equipment using wine. The men who came out loudly lamented, dissatisfied with the master's work. Jinfrey knew the feeling. If you didn't bring the right equipment, the master wouldn't listen to you. The guy walked in, smiling cheerfully, immediately covering himself from the objects flying at him. Master Tobar was unhappy that he was being distracted again and told him to get lost. He said there was no equipment for the guy here. Jinfrey noted that the man hadn't changed at all. The guy asked Tobar to listen to him for at least 1 second. Jinfrey said that he brought with him one amazing liquid. The man froze when he saw this and finally stopped pushing the guy out. Tobar couldn't understand how such a guy could have such wine. He told them to leave the alcohol and get out. The man began to violently beat Jinfrey on the legs. The guy could barely contain himself, noting how painful it was. If you give Tobar wine now, he'll get drunk, become more friendly, and make S-rank equipment. But if you add a burning stone to that, Jinfrey showed the master the stone he had received from Freyna. When the master calmed down, he invited the guy to the table. Tobar couldn't hold back his tears as he explained that his late wife loved it too. He had told Jinfrey this hundreds of times, but the boy kept silent about it. The guy poured more wine for the man. Thus, he received a secret event. If you just give the master the wine, you can get S-rank equipment, but that's not the end. Tobar began to blame himself for being a bad husband. Jinfrey realized that this could be a long time. The boy stayed with Tobar all night, and the next morning he could hardly open his eyes. The master said that he would give the guy something for the wine he brought. Jinfrey thanked the man. That was what he expected from the legendary blacksmith. Thus, Jinfrey received the third secret equipment, Idaten's leg, which allowed him to move freely in any conditions. Having gotten what he wanted, the guy realized that there was nothing more for him to do here. He got ready to go to the S-rank dungeon, Grace Palace.